Over three-quarters of our planet are covered by the oceans. Their biodiversity is unmatched, and they contain over 80% of all life on Earth. Millions of people worldwide are depending on the oceans for their daily livelihoods. The world's oceans are struggling right now to survive the greatest threat known as overfishing. Thankfully, it's not too late to turn the tide. Urgent action is needed to change fishing practices and reclaim our oceans for marine life and global coastal communities. More and more, all of this is endangered because of our ignorance and lack of global management. Overfishing not only affects fish, but also affects other animals within our ecosystem. Believe it or not, the problem has been known to harm people and their jobs as well. I chose to talk on the overfishing problem because it's an enormous global practice gone bad. Fishing is my life, and that's what I enjoy and have a passion for. The problem I'm addressing is something I grew up around and witnessed firsthand, and I figured, since I'm going to school for fish and wildlife, why not talk on such an interesting topic? If you live in Florida or around any major bodies of water and like to eat fish, you might like to hear out what I have to say. To start off, I will get a little technical by informing you of what overfishing actually is and how it happens. Overfishing occurs when fishing activities reduce fish stocks below an acceptable level. This can occur in any body of water, from a pond to the oceans. More precise, a biological and bioeconomic terms define their difficulty. Biological overfishing occurs when fishing extinction has reached a level where the stock biomass has a negative marginal growth, basically slowing down the stock of breeding. Fish are being taken out of the water so quickly that the replenishment of stock by breeding actually slows down. If the replenishment continues to slow down for long enough, replenishment will go into reverse and the population will decrease or eventually just become extinct. Another technical term is economic or bioeconomic overfishing, which basically considers the cost of fishing and defines a fishing as a situation of negative marginal growth and a resource of rent also. So pretty much, fish are being taken out of the water so quickly that the growth and the profitability of fishing slows down. If this continues for long enough, profitability will decrease. Here are just a few statistics of the fall of fish populations that I rounded up from the Green Planet website on the internet. In 2004, the U.S. Commission on Ocean Policy reported that 25 to 30% of the world's major fish stocks are overexploited, that U.S. fisheries are experiencing similar difficulties. Of the nation's 267 major fish stocks, roughly 20% are either already overfished, experiencing overfishing, or approaching an overfished condition. Also, I found that in 2005, the study by Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations found that global stocks of most fish are stretched to their limits. Nearly a quarter of commercial species have already been overexploited, with a total of 70% of species now being fished close to or at or beyond their capacity. One may wonder how the world's fishermen have seemingly caused such a large overfishing problem. Can using boats, canoes, kayaks, spears, nets, or fishing poles really be going that far over fishing limits? Can weekend sportsmen really catch that many fish? I mean, there's a lot of sportsmen on TV that go out and get lucky and still seem to make fools out of themselves all in one weekend. They catch a lot of fish whenever they go out. Individual and commercial fishing activities, of course, are not the big problem when it comes to overfishing. Actually, the high-tech fishing fleets are. But you wouldn't think that even commercial fishing fleets would be smart enough to know that overharvesting is what the world's oceans will eventually cause them to go out of business. But the biggest share of the fish are being plucked from the world's ocean are caught by industrial fishing fleets, which are any real large boats that catch fish, a lot of fish, and flash freeze them on board right then for large corporations like McDonald's or something. Over the last few decades, commercial fishing boats have gotten supersized and outfitted with an amazing array of sophisticated gear for locating fish, catching fish, and even freezing and processing them right on board. Actually, in 2003, a widespread overfishing was one of the major findings of the final report from the Pew Oceans Commission, which noted that numbers of fish within the many prime species have been significantly reduced by high-tech fishing practices that actually deplete the fish stocks and degrade the nursery areas, and they just produce them by wasteful catch. They just throw them back sometimes and they're dead. They just waste the fish. This year, another study that the Pew Fish Organization found that predatory fish populations, including shark, tuna, North Atlantic cod, continue to spiral downward, with many species dropping from 90% for more past in the 40-50 years actually. Not only are the fish disappearing, it affects the other species as well, which catches eyes of many people who really don't care about fishing actually. The wild fish in our oceans are the last wild creatures that people hunt on a global scale. This overfishing not only depletes the fish that are desirable to consumers, but causes serious consequences for the marine environment. The natural ocean ecosystem is disrupted, ultimately threatening many non-marine species as well as their natural food supply. Sea lions, fur seals, otters, as well as many types of birds are examples of what species are placed at risk whenever we overfish. Removing excessive quantities of a specific species also shows how the marine ecosystem is at a whole risk of collapse. The Pew Oceans Commission's organization, what I was talking about earlier, is an organization that's just devoted to the problems of all the problems in our oceans. According to the Commission, and it's an example I found that occurred in the Chesapeake Bay area when overfished and other environmental toxins depleted in the area. These filter feeders play an important role based on the most abundant ocean plant, microscopic algae. Even the oysters were overfished out there. The Chesapeake Bay area now has an estimated 1% in the former amount of oysters that they used to have. The lack of algae caused the disruption of the oxygen balance in the water, which has resulted in depleted dead zones all throughout the Chesapeake Bay area. Overfishing not only impacts the natural balance and health of our ocean, but also results in great financial losses for many people. The ability of the ocean to produce fish is vital and an important estimated 200 million people worldwide as they depend on the oceans for jobs and for food. According to the United Nations, 1 in every 5 humans depends on fish as the primary source of protein. The fishing industry, the government, environmental scientists, as well as consumers, we all have to work together to learn how to stop destructive fishing and help back bring some of our fisheries. Properly managed, our oceans continue to produce an abundant supply of fish indefinitely. Marine reserves have been one very effective potential solution to the problem of overfishing. I'm currently working at Captain Anderson's in Panama City, which is a seafood restaurant. Every day we get fresh fish in from commercial boats. We've been getting it in for the past 50 years nearby. There have been many days where we haven't had many types of fish because seasons have been closed for that certain fish. Just imagine if nothing was done with the problem, then how many people would lose their jobs at restaurants and even on the boats that catch the fish. Despite all the bad news, there are a few things being done to help regain the fish numbers. The season limits have been put out on fish, which deals with periods of times that the fish have been suspended for the species. You can't go out and catch certain fish at certain times of the year. Also, they put bag limits on fish, which are created and enforced. And now they're enforced. They didn't used to be enforced, but since it is becoming a really big problem, they do begin to enforce them. Again, I chose to discuss on overfishing because it is a very large population and problem worldwide, and I personally believe that something has to be done about it.